I'm Chris Bray. I'm going to keep it really brief. This morning I thought about, when you go a long time without seeing someone, when it's an old friend, you look forward to the fact that maybe they haven't changed and things are just like they used to be. But when it comes as a teacher with your students, and your last memory of them was when they were in 10th grade, and you're thinking, you're going to see him, how's he going to be different? You kind of hope maybe he's changed a little bit. This past week, I sat in the office, Julie and I shared an office at Centennial, and she was reading, kind of previewing what our first speaker was going to say, and I could tell this guy had made some amazing changes in his life. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from this awesome guy, Eren Niederhoffer.
I want to thank everyone for coming today. I see we have quite a few parents in the room. May I ask how many of you are planning on sending your kids off to college? Please raise your hands. Ooh, that's quite a few. Before I get the speech started, I would like to give a personal thanks to Miss Julie Butler for allowing me to present here today, and also Miss Diane Prindle for setting me up with Julie Butler to make this wonderful thing happen. And without further ado, let's get started. For many of us on the spectrum, life after high school itself is extremely difficult, whether or not we enter college. There's the aspect of wanting friends. There's also seeking activities to do. The idea of relationships, jobs, and even the issue for some of us of not wanting to take part in activities due to introversion or not wanting to get out. Even before high school, I've struggled with these issues and overcome most of them. Even if some of the students may not be able to enter college, there's plenty someone on the spectrum can do to enrich their lives. And it starts while you are still in school with that chance for a future. When I look back on where I started in school, back in a self-contained classroom, it wasn't until high school that I finally started transitioning out of those rooms and attending mainstream classes with typical students. I had to learn how to control my behavior, deal with this noise and sensory issues, to where it no longer affects me. By the time I entered college, I was going to classes on my own, without any teaching assistants needing to watch over me. Before my final year of high school, there were still a variety of difficulties I suffered from. I had no friends to speak of. I had no interest in getting out, attending any sort of event. My social skills, abysmal. And I also refused to change who I was or become a flexible-minded person. Then, before my final year of high school, my mom had found a seminar and sent me there to where I listened to an elderly couple who were both on the spectrum, had both graduated from high school, had both graduated from college, and had overcome the difficulties in their lives. Among the many things they explained, they said one of their main points was that it was so unhealthy to live life without friends. It was during that conference, it struck something in me, a chord. I realized that at that point, this wasn't how I wanted to be spending my life. I didn't want to spend the majority of my life in front of the computer when there's so many other things I could do. I didn't want to remain someone who had such trouble understanding or being around people. I did not want to spend most of my life being interested in just a few select things that I could get bored over when there were so many opportunities, possibilities out there. I realized the moment I came home from that seminar, the sooner I started, the sooner my life could change for the better. I started my attempts to change by trying to sit in with people in the cafeteria. In the past, I couldn't take the noise and stimulation of the environment and preferred to eat outside the cafeteria, rather just working on homework rather than actually speaking with people. So the first step was being able to endure all that noise and commotion. Very hard, but it had to be done before I could even begin to socialize with other people. every time I felt like I would just suffer that overload of the stimuli, I reminded myself what I was doing this for, what was right on the road ahead, and how good this would be when I accomplished it. Finally, it no longer became a problem. But the next step, now that I could brave that stimuli in the environment, was trying to converse and socialize with people at tables who I had never sat down with before and had no idea how to socialize with. No. The people together, furthermore, they knew each other. They sat down together because they knew each other, and I was an outsider. This is where I learned conversation with people I didn't know before, and trying to let them allow me into their conversation, into their little group while they sat at lunch. Knowing what to say, what not to say, and how to do both really went a long way in trying to get on the good side of people. Having not much experience in that matter made me make quite a few mistakes, just like most people on the spectrum. First thing I learned was tact. Honesty is indeed a virtue. Don't tell you when you're a little kid is that you really need to watch what you say, because you don't know whether you can hurt someone's feelings, embarrass yourself, or drive people away from you. Life is not like comics, TV, books, or cartoons. It doesn't have a script. You can't be prepared for every single possibility and know exactly what to say or how to say it. It's always open to that. You have to keep in mind everything you say, especially when you're on the spectrum, and be able to judge how the reactions are, from compliments to answers to questions. Also, the way you speak, important. Eye contact, often something very difficult for autistics, goes a long way towards getting people to be willing to interact with you. It's very good for first impression. For me, now middle school and high school, plenty of mistakes I made ended up making me feel isolated. But while I did not realize they were creepy or could be rude at the time, they helped me in moving me forward to today. One other thing I've really gotten control over the years, conversations. Especially for people on the spectrum, we have so much we want to say. We want to pack so much into detail. But we have to let other people talk. And we have to know when we're not talking too much. And also, we have to be able to look at the people who are listening and judge whether or not they're interested or they have somewhere else they need to be. It was much easier when I started observing people's faces and behavior while I was talking. Body language is really 90% of all forms of communication. And when you consider that you speak most of the time, it's even more important to consider. Do not look away from someone's face while you're talking. Another hard part I had the year was trying to interact was the setting. It may be a bad time, a bad place to talk with someone. Thank you. And you may just want to get something out, something off your chest. You want to say something to someone. But you have to know when there's a good time, when there's a good place, and what the situation is. Body language, again, very helpful. Sometimes there's no real way to go about it, and even though you just want to say something to someone you know, or there's someone you particularly want to talk to, you're going to have to wait until it's the right time. Not knowing any better in high school, there was those mistakes, but transitioning, experience. Eventually, I was able to learn to the point where it became basic. The hardest thing, most of all in high school, was making friends that I could hang out with outside of school time. Sure, you could interact with people in the hallway. You could interact with people in class. It's completely different from people that you hang with outside of a required setting. One opportunity that was in high school itself that I did not take advantage of was school projects. There were opportunities there for me to interact with people. I would bond with them while I worked with them on projects that required us to interact outside of the classroom, outside of school. I could have made friends at that time, but at that time I was so isolated, not introverted, that I did not that I managed to get my teacher to provide an accommodation in the form of me working on projects on my own. When I look back, I would definitely have changed this aspect if I had a chance, because it is one valuable opportunity that you may not often get the chance to make, whether as an adult or a student. Once again, for me, I did not realize the importance of such an idea until I entered college. Thanks to my mother's advice while I was in high school, once again, I worked up the courage to ask several people I knew for their numbers in order to hang around and hang out outside of the school setting. Although most of them said no, there was at least one person who I had known for the entire time in school who did give me her number. If I had worked together with other people on the projects, built up communication, it might have been different. But by taking that chance to ask and going forward, it was another huge step. And that person and I still are wonderful friends. What's more, just by knowing that one friend, I was introduced to other friends as a result. Just one step opens so many other steps that you can take and moves you forward. That was such an impact on my life. College was a new experience for me because, for one, I was going to an out-of-state college. Second, my high school was about 2,700 people. Mercer University was 9,000. But it was a fresh start, and I could present a new me. While I did not know anyone there at all, what was so wonderful about Marshall was that it has the biggest autism support program in the country, known as CPSAS, that helped me handle life skills, finances, and social skills, as well as workplace and interview skills to become more independent. One of the things they offered me was a graduate assistant who would check up on me, be a sort of guide, and also was a real friend. I went through at least 5, and I still keep in touch. The bonds that you make with them stick with you. There were no special classes that I took. All my classes were mainstream. I went to classes with all the typical individuals, had coursework just like all the typical individuals, and while there were accommodations in the form of extra test time or taking a test in a different classroom, it was almost the same as if I was a normal individual. That was perfect, except for one thing that was different. When I went to live in the dormitories, as required for all autistics, we had a single room. It was perhaps better for me this way because I still had problems, I still was not sure of having a roommate. And it was just hard, and to some degrees it still is, but nowhere near the same extent. Of course, upon entering college, I still had many issues with my social skills. When I started living in the dormitory, I was placed in a suite. There were several single bedrooms where several college students took, and we shared a bathroom and a hall and a living room. But for that, I had some interaction despite it being a required setting. And it was useful because I still had issues with somewhat of the desire to socialize. But other than us living in the same suite, I had nothing in common with these guys. And they didn't interact. We were living together because we were forced to. We had little to no interaction, no conversations, no hanging out. I was living with people without really living with people. It was at this point that I realized I was alone, and it hurt. These suite mates all took people had lives of their own, and I could have taken the chance over the years to get a roommate instead, but again, it was still so hard. I couldn't do it. It was at that point that I realized the worst thing that could happen to me over the years for the rest of my life was to be lonely. And throughout college, I experienced this empty feeling, which caused a form of depression. It spurred me then, even more than when I was in high school, to try to get rid of this pain and loneliness by finding other people to interact with, friends to make, people to hang out with outside the campus and outside the dormitories. As time went by, I felt comfortable enough to open up to several people about my autism, and they served as mentors to me. Especially among this group was the dormitories themselves. While I did live technically alone in the suite, the dormitories had programs and social events that allowed me to meet people and make new friends, and some of these people were wonderful mentors to me. There was even one such fellow, let's call him Quess, who has helped me not only interacting with others, but also helped me coach me on social activities to take part in. It was really during my first year that everything changed so much for me. In my dorm, there was this other fellow who didn't have many friends, but saw how I wanted to change myself and felt a kinship with me. Let's call him Nick for now. He was the guy who was responsible for me becoming at least half of what I am today through this progress. Of all the things Nick helped me in changing myself, the greatest thing of all was him taking the effort to change me from becoming so inflexible, so closed-minded to new things, into opening new opportunities, seeking new ideas, and being flexible and open to change. And people too. First 2 years of college, for example, I stayed in my dorms on Saturday and Friday nights while other people went out. Nick really convinced me to try out parties, clubs, and so many other events. And while it was nervous for me at first, and while I seemed strange or out of place, eventually I felt the confidence and skills to go out there on my own. And people welcomed me there. Of course, during the third year, even up to from the first to third, I still had the social awkwardness. And people did keep away from me at first until I was able to overcome it, and they overlook it. Make no mistake, at college parties, there are plenty of people who will be cruel to those who stand out and seem to show themselves, and they certainly were. In fact, I have been the subject of tweets on Twitter where certain people found out I was autism, said they could not understand how I could live with myself, and thought that I should commit suicide, or they wish they would die rather than have a condition like mine. That is how cruel people can be when they do not understand the families and the children themselves with the spectrum. But that's why friends are such a valuable treasure in life. They give you self-worth. They help other people see such a good person that you are. And they'll back you up when you need help. But having confidence when going to places also gives you that sense of security. The willingness to try new things carried over into so many aspects of life. Social skills, hobbies, exercise, diving. I still refuse to do drugs, just because you may be open to new ideas. Always remember, there is such a thing as a limit. Well, just the same, Nick was willing to take the time and effort to get me to finally change myself from who I was. That willingness to try new things, to be open to how I can change myself for the better, is crucial to how I am now. And thanks to him, I've been able to pay back the kindness he did for me to all people I come across. From people on the street, to people at clubs and friendships, and more importantly, to you people today. His kindness has allowed me to help you people as well by giving you my walk on life. Well, really another thing that was helpful about Nick being there for me is that I was able to listen to what other people were thinking about me or saying behind my back. Not the stuff on Facebook or Twitter, but actually in the hallways and stuff. By listening to what was being said and how I could change myself at the time, I could improve my social skills, my behavior, to where people's comments became positive. The really hard part was not letting anyone know that I had someone listening to what they were saying. For people on the spectrum, when you hear this or you hear that, and you're unhappy about what they're saying, many times we wanted to confront them And that self-restraint was so hard. I was fortunate I was able to manage, because if I did speak my mind or confront it, that would just make things worse for me. It seemed that I had to snitch or that people would snitch, just wouldn't work. But learning to let certain things go, or learning how to better resolve a conflict without just confronting someone, that helped fix so many of the problems I had to deal with. Excuse me a moment. Finally, during my third year, I also started searching for campus groups to be involved with, and the results of exploring options. And I became involved with the Student Activities Programming Board, which planned activities for students all across campus to get to know people, make friends, and have fun. It was my first organization that I ever joined, and it truly allowed me to make new friends and have new experiences. Again, it was difficult with my autism, but these people were so open-minded. Again, just like the people at my dormitories, most of these people became my mentors. SAPB became an incredible source of development for me in being open-minded. But there was another group that I took part in that had an effect on my life. But for me to go into a bit of detail, I'll start with another one. My university had an event called Day of Service every semester, where you were expected to take part in volunteer nonprofit activities with different groups across Huntington. You wouldn't get any rewards or points, but it was expected of you to help out. I got involved in a church and had real fun helping them. But at that church, one woman who was there who ran a program at Mercer University noticed that I seemed a bit different, and in speaking with me realized that I was autistic. After that day of service, she managed to find me and asked me to help her out with her program, the Mercer University Multicultural Affairs, where I would help speak about autism. This was the first time I had ever done public speaking in my life, which helped me now to where I am today for all of you. Mercer University Cultural Affairs was an organization that gathered different individuals from unique backgrounds across campus and get them to speak with different groups around the city, not just at college, to help break down stereotypes. There was an Orthodox Muslim girl, a foreign Japanese girl, a gay man, a student whose family had a criminal history, and a girl who came to school on a soccer scholarship but wanted to get into academics. From little kids, student teachers, to finally our university's board of governors, the people who made the decisions for our college. Speaking about my difficulties with autism, how I overcame them, and how other people can deal with them, was another step to the self-improvement development. The Autism Support Program also helped by connecting me with nonprofit groups in the city to get me internships and job experience, which helped me get to where I am today in careers. Big for my future, because even though I was the first honors student ever to come from the autism program, grades is not everything. It's not just what you know in the world. It's who you know. So even with honors, even with awards, it meant nothing but not built work skills, learn how to dress, and learn how to interact. And also, what never to discuss in certain settings, such as religion, politics, and sex. No. Fortunately, my employers were also work with the autism program to help teach me and guide me through these mistakes. And I'm grateful for that. It was in my final year that I moved out of the dorms and into an apartment complex. While my interaction with the other students was very limited, it was still a transition to more independence. But by that time, I was actually getting out of the apartment on my own and joining so many activities that I no longer felt alone. Another thing that was interesting was that I did happen to go out on a few dates. It was difficult learning social skills, just like learning social skills, and even though I made mistakes on the dates, I learned from them. Some of them was like not offering to pay the whole bill for a girl, talking about sensitive issues like the ones at the workplace, again, a no-no, and talking too much about myself. Furthermore, as I mentioned, the body language and the conversations in which I tried in high school, detail, body language, and listening to what other people have to say, also crucial. Even though some of them went wrong, I still maintained on good terms with those people I went out with. What others say about you in an environment that you typically go to will often stick with you for the entire time that you're there. First impressions work once. Make it a good one. And then I graduated, and everything changed. It was wonderful, the transition and changes for me in college, but back in Georgia, I had to start fresh. I had almost no friends back home, nobody to interact with. And because Atlanta was such an urban area requiring driving and stuff, I had very few activities to get involved with. It was worse than being in dormitories, and this feeling of depression and emptiness lasted for months. Eventually, the wonderful Diane Prindle introduced me to one of the several networking sites called Meetup, to attend public events with people of interest groups. There were autistic groups, there were social groups, there were so many. Thanks to that, not only was I able to meet people and make friends, but my life was enriched. I had purpose, and it was wonderful. Thanks to two stability programs in Atlanta, I was also able to interview and get jobs in two places that would propel me forward in opening the door for my career. Disability Link would set me up with a nonprofit group that I worked as administrative assistant with from October of last year to May. Today, thanks to Diane Prindle's group Briggs & Associates, which acts as job coaching, I now do administrative work with an eye towards higher skilled services for the Piedmont Financial Group of Atlanta. I'll take this one. There's been so much that has happened in my life. There's too many things which have happened, too many people that if they were not there, if these events had not happened, I would not be the man I am today. Taking chances, being open to change. I've reached so much progress in my life. I am now capable of living independently. I am still learning. I am still developing. But on this path, it's been nothing short of a miracle. My future has been assured, but what I want to do for all of you is give you this description of my life and what I have gone through, these experiences, and the hopes that for each of you, for each of your children, you will be able to guarantee as much as you can for them to have another wonderful future, just like I have made mine. And I hope that it does work out. For all of you who came here today, who came here to listen, thank you, all of you.